welcome back to Melodic Logic. In this episode, we're going to be listening and discussing Breaking Benjamin's Hollow from the 2015 album Dark Before Dawn. Let's get started. I have heard this song before. I am actually a huge fan of Breaking Benjamin. The way that Ben Burnley is able to not only write the lyrics, compose a majority of the music, but also be able to express it in such a way that's just so raw and emotional, yet it's so well composed. If you're a fan of Breaking Benjamin, listening to a lot of their songs, especially even in headphones, and I love listening to music in headphones because you're able to pick out all the nuances that you might not hear in your car or your stereo. There are so many unique characteristics in all of the songs that really make it a full song, but also make it so orchestrate-like. It's massively impressive. So Hollow, from Dark Before the Dawn, was released in 2015. They were on a 5-year hiatus. Unfortunately, Ben had a falling out with his former members, Aaron and Mark. So they ended up leaving the band eventually along with their drummer. In 2013, Ben was able to obtain the rights, all of the exclusive rights to Breaking Benjamin, so he continued on. During this period between late 2009 and 2014, early 2015, actually 2014, Ben had come down with an illness, and that was one of the reasons why there was such a long hiatus in between these albums. And as he was sick, working through all of this, he became frustrated that he wasn't really getting any better, wasn't getting the answers that he needed to get better. So instead of focusing on his illness, he began writing Dark Before Dawn. Once all of that came to fruition, he then partnered up with various artists from Red, from Adelita's Way, and Picture Me Broken. So that basically comprised the new band for Dark Before Dawn. I picked this particular song because I have a ton of my favorite songs from Breaking Benjamin. This is probably one of my favorites from Dark Before Dawn. So I thought we'd give it a listen and talk about it. Let's get started.
Stay alive. Heaven holds a place for us tonight. I am paralyzed.
Now, before I continue, if you've heard the song, you know what's coming next. It's such a clean opening, and yet so ethereal. There's this nice ambient music and sounds in the background that kind of really draw you into this particular song. And the first words just being "stay alive." Heaven holds a place for us tonight. So, interesting and very creative way to hook the listener in, not only to the words, but also to the music that's going on in the background. All right, let me just start over real quick.
Stay alive. Heaven holds a place for us tonight. I am paralyzed.
So to go from such a subtle and quiet beginning, immediately hitting hard, and Breaking Benjamin is so well known for being able to orchestrate these hard-hit moments, and they're so methodically laid out. Not only that, we kind of get an idea of how heavy the song is going to be, and we'll see as that progresses throughout the song, but they're also able to seamlessly blend that back down to such a semi-quiet portion of the song. I love how all of Breaking Benjamin's songs hit at such precise moments.
Close your eyes, drive away the cloud that hides the light, and leave the pain behind.
So you got to wonder, knowing that he was going through an illness during this time, a lot of the words to me seem like this album is really based upon that experience. And we see that with a lot of different artists that we'll discuss, and I have discussed in the past. But the fact that starting out with just the words, "stay alive," so Ben really wasn't knowing what was going on with his illness. And it was very, very debilitating for him. And then switching it to stating that he's paralyzed because he doesn't know what to do in this particular instance, or for these years that he's been dealing with this illness, right? Like, what are you supposed to do when you can't get any answers and no doctor's able to tell you what's actually going on and how to cure it? And with these negative thoughts that presumably he's going through, he starts out with this other line of this verse saying, "Drive away the clouds that hides the light and leave the pain behind." So that's kind of his again, my opinion, his thoughts on coming out of this illness and trying to leave that behind and continue to move forward. I'm not going to stop at every line, but my point is that going back to some of the things that I've said in previous videos is that the music really has to have a true story behind it, and it needs to be compelling. The story itself doesn't have to be compelling as long as it's real to a degree. Not everyone wants to flesh out exactly what they're feeling, the emotions that they're going through on paper for the world to see. But if you take a look at history of music, that is what a lot of great artists do, regardless of the genre. So I again go back to the fact that this is coming from a place that is personal to Ben and his writings. So let's continue.
Dead alive, find a way to bury all the lies, escape the hate inside.
He's trying to bury all these lies that he's trying to tell himself and escape that pain that he's feeling inside.
'Cause I don't wanna fall or let you go. Love left me hollow. I'm with you in the end.
I have chill bumps. The way that the music just seamlessly flows together, and the way that the words that he's chosen for each of these phrases have a particular punch to them, and it's just gut-wrenching. I mean, the amount of time that it would take, I would love to sit and talk with Ben, because the amount of time that it takes to develop a song and end up creating a song or producing a song, what that methodology is. I mean, for some people, it might be instant. They hear a song, they hear a rhythm, or they hear a note. They know exactly what needs to follow that next and what's going to make it a great song, and how they're going to continue the development of that song to keep it and remain it being great. A lot of Breaking Benjamin songs, when you listen to the choruses and their hooks, they're so layered. I mean, as you're writing this out, love left me hollow, I'm with you in the end. So the fact that love left me hollow is the primary vocal on that, but the back end of it is I'm with you in the end, and then we'll see and listen over the top. Cold, crippled, and hollow. Don't leave me here again. Being able to layer this, and he does that so well with a lot of his songs, that it just, again, it gives me chill bumps because it's such an amazing experience and ride to be on and listen to. I'm going to go back just 10 seconds.
Or let you go. Love left me hollow. I'm with you in the end. Cold,
So we got a brief teaser of the chorus. So as it comes in later to the song, we'll see that it's much fuller than what was just experienced here. And I think that that's a great way that musicians are able to hook in a listener to continue to want to listen, because you could tell just the way that it's building that there should be more and that we want more, but then they seamlessly bring it back down to the original rhythm. The other thing that Breaking Benjamin is great at doing is the way that the strumming is done and the way that the notes are hit. And I'll discuss this in some of their other songs as well. But when you listen, there's all these nuances. So in this particular part, you hear dun 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 dun, and I think that that's extremely key in keeping the listener hooked and to keep the flow of the song to continue going. I'm just going to go back 10 seconds for that.
Fruit of life, I can hear the voices of the hive.
We go up an octave, back down. We get that payoff with dun 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 dun. I love that. So, I can hear the voices of the hive chemicals collide. Loaded smile. Light the way of those you left behind, set the earth on fire. Lyrically, to me, Benjamin is so very creative with the phrases and the words he chooses. This, he does it for so many songs, majority of all of them, but there are some that I'll also review if I haven't already. Had Enough, for example. There are some phrases in that song lyrically that are just so poignant. In any case, the fact that he's saying, light the way for those you left behind, and basically by setting the earth on fire. So we're building up. Here's our payoff. Now we continue. So, again, I have chill bumps again. So, don't leave me here again. I can't go on. You're bound to break me in. I come undone. But don't you drag me down again. So he's really trying to overcome the weight of this illness or this emotion. I mean, again, I'm only speculating that he's writing this particular song. And majority of the songs, again, my speculation, are coming from this illness. But I use these words and these lyrics all over in my life in particular instances. So the fact that whether you're feeling down or you're having a hard time at work, or no matter what you do, it doesn't feel like you're doing it right, or the payoff is not what you were expecting, or the resolution is not what you were expecting. The great thing, again, about Breaking Benjamin is he's got this ability to use these words that can be placed in any circumstance, so they make it fully relatable. So some people may not like this type of music because it is aggressive. Not to me, but it is. And the reason I say not to me is because if you compare this, let's say, to a raw heavy metal band, there are some greats, don't get me wrong. But when you think about music today and just the evolution of music, he's been able to take something that at some point in time used to be so raw, yet highly regarded, and blending it into such a melodic prose. It's massively impressive. I mean, I love bands like Pink Floyd, and musically and lyrically are great. It's very compelling. Their songs are so compelling, and there's so many layers to the songs. From actually all the bands that I primarily listen to, that it's extremely impressive, and Breaking Benjamin is no different. So while maybe you don't like these how heavy this music might be, the words can still be so compelling. It's like some people like country music for that same reason. And I point this out because in some cases there can be stigmas that if it is an extremely heavy metal band or even a light metal band, they're not always pleasing, not only to the ear, but the words. A lot of people, again, with a stigma might think that they just don't really know how to write music. They just like to thrash around and be obnoxious. But if people did take the time to listen to the lyrics of a lot of these, and we're talking way back when even punk was originated, it came from a feeling and a purpose. And I think that that's extremely important to remember as you listen to music and as you grow in your music. I'm just going to go back because 10 seconds because I love this. I love that transition. So I love that because a lot of bands will put in lead guitar sections, and it's more or less to kind of show off the way that musician can play. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, because I love songs that invoke some sort of emotion in me, that having guitarist or having guitar solos specifically to complement that. That's why I love David Gilmour. He's phenomenal at the expression of emotion in guitar. And this, while not as methodical as I would say David Gilmour was, the point though is that it still helps drive it along by keeping that emotion involved in this. How could you just not want to sing and scream along with this? I can't. I try to sit here in these videos and be composed, but I can't. I just can't. So hopefully you feel the same way. To me, there's just everything is in its proper place, hitting at the proper time with the right devotion, the right lyrics, and the right melody. I was going to say methodology, the right melody for everything. And to me, it hits at such proper pinpoints. It's amazing, and I can't help it. I have to go back. It's so quiet. It leads in. It's ethereal. there's just something about that and so many songs from Breaking Benjamin that are like that. There are some bands that have hits, right? Those hits, one of the main reasons that those hits for those particular bands, or any band, or any song for that matter, I'm trying to figure out what words to say, but one of the main reasons that songs become hits are because people, as a large collection, have an emotion connected to it. It hits them in some way. And I've said this before, you can have the most beautiful music, but if you don't have words or vocals that match it, unfortunately, it's just not going to work. You could have the most beautiful voice and accompanied with some of the, let's say, greatest music, but some of the worst lyrics. It unfortunately is not going to work. And the third stage is if you had a great vocalist, terrible music, but wonderful lyrics. There are cases where that has worked out well. But if these bands and producers just took the time to change and tweak one or two little things to improve the overall experience, it could take a great song into an incredible song. And I think that's what's great about music is you find a band and you listen to their songs. You're like, it can't get any better than this. And over time, you just, it's that song's no longer new. That album's no longer new. You still have the emotion tied to it, but it's not as great as it was. And you go and you try to find other bands. Camera keeps going blurry. But you try to go and find other bands that can be just as compelling. And that's the fun part, right? I mean, that's why, another reason why we have so many different movies with different genres. You'll have your favorite movie, but 10 years later, 5 years later, a year later, you'll want to try to find another movie that gave you that same emotion, that same feeling, that same experience. Well, music is no different, at least for me. And I do highly believe that a lot of the reasons that there are bands that are truly successful with phenomenal songs and a following is because they're able to hit emotions and feelings that stir somebody deeply. And taking the time as a band to rewrite the lyrics, rewrite the music, add notes in here and there to make sure that it's always going to be the right tempo or the right feeling that you're trying to portray, and that can be such an amazing song, just like Hollow is for Breaking Benjamin. What do you think? Had you heard this song before? Had you heard other Breaking Benjamin songs? Do you have a favorite Breaking Benjamin song? Are there other songs from Breaking Benjamin that you'd like for me to listen to and discuss? I've heard most of them. I've heard all of them, and a very large majority are my favorite. And again, finding a band that has more than one or two songs is really hard. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of start doing this, is maybe urge bands, musicians, and creators to actually create something worthy, something that people want to discuss, something that people want to feel. In any case, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope it was informative, educational, maybe not so much, but entertaining. And yeah, let me know if there's other bands and songs you want me to listen to. Post it in the comments, add it to our channel. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care.